This is video 1.2 for Houston Baptist University's PSYC3313 Human Growth and Development course. There are a lot of different perspectives covered in this chapter. Let's focus now on Freud and Erikson. Freud and Erikson are psychodynamic theorists who differ somewhat. Please look carefully at the chart on page 14 in your textbook. It maps out the stages proposed by both, and it compares and contrasts them. In this chart, we see Freud's stages on the left column ending with the genital stage, and Erikson's 8 stages off to the right and lining up with Freud's stages as we move down the page. Remember, Freud suggests that unconscious forces determine one's personality and behavior. Now, Erikson started off agreeing with Freud, but he felt that there's a social component as well. Freud saw development as being completed by the end of adolescence, while Erikson saw development continuing throughout the lifespan. In the behavioral perspective, the focus is on observable behavior. You've probably heard about Pavlov and his dogs. This is the prime example of classical conditioning. In classical conditioning, a neutral stimulus, like the bell, is paired with a stimulus that naturally produces a natural response, like food makes dogs salivate. Learning occurs, and the neutral stimulus begins to produce the same response of salivation. Another example includes the fear response. Do a quick Google search for the little Albert experiment and see how Watson produced a fear response in poor little Albert. In operant conditioning, on the other hand, the consequences of a behavior either increase the likelihood that the behavior will be repeated, or they decrease the likelihood of recurrence. Remember, reinforcement increases the likelihood, and punishment decreases the likelihood of a behavior being repeated. Positive means you add something. So positive reinforcement, you're adding something pleasurable. Like if you clean your room, you get ice cream. Whereas negative reinforcement, you take away something unpleasurable. Oh, you don't have to do the dishes if you eat all your dinner. Remember, negative reinforcement is a reward that increases the likelihood of behavior. Punishment always is intended to decrease the likelihood of the behavior recurring. A positive punishment is adding something unpleasant, a spanking, a policeman giving you a ticket for speeding. Whereas negative punishment takes away something that you enjoy, something pleasant, such as taking away video game privileges, losing your license for too many speeding tickets, and so on. Now, for the behavioral perspective, there's the social cognitive learning. Bandura felt like a lot of behavior is learned by watching models, so he studied vicarious learning. His interesting study on aggression is definitely worth watching. Click on this link to view it. The cognitive perspective includes Piaget, information processing, and cognitive neuroscience perspectives. We won't go into Piaget here, as we will be seeing a lot of Piaget in later chapters. But information processing compares human learning and memory with computers. It deals with how we take in, use, and store information. It considers our storage capacity and processing speed. While cognitive neuroscience looks at cognitive development through the lens of brain processes. It identifies locations of the brain with specific functions. Research in this field will hopefully enable us to better understand autism and other developmental disorders. Then we have the contextual perspectives. Bronfenbrenner's bioecological approach is gaining great strides in the field. This approach shows 5 levels of environment which simultaneously influence individual development. See figure 1-2 in your textbook on page 22. It shows you the individual surrounded by the spheres or systems that impact the individual. including the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, and the macrosystem. Finally, the chronosystem underlies all of the previous systems and includes historical events of the individual's culture. And the other cultural or contextual perspective is Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. Vygotsky felt we cannot even look at human development without looking at the context of the individual. He felt that cognitive development proceeds as a result of social interactions between members of a culture. The culture and the people in a child's life influence the child, but the child also influences the people and the culture around him or her. Remember, this presentation is not comprehensive. It only highlights some of the more important or difficult to understand points of the chapter. You are responsible for all information in the chapter. See you next time.